Well, good morning and welcome to our millions of viewers here in Nigeria, the continent, and all around the world. It's a brand new day and we are grateful for life. I am Kelly Egiga.
And look who got the blue memo today. If you're around these parts, you would notice that it's rather humid, but we're grateful regardless of what the weather is saying, as long as the constant is, goodness. And that's what we bring always on the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect morning starter. I am Bukola Koka.
Yeah, that phrase, your perfect morning starter.
Spot on. And what seems to be spot on this morning, Kelly, is the security report we're getting. As a matter of fact, some media are reporting it this way. Trump threat, troops pound terrorists. Whoa. Now, that is rather cheery to note. Whoa. Well, the death toll is not clear at this time, but we understand that quite a number of them were taken out in states like Borno, Kwara, and we want to get more reports like this. Apart from that, something also closely related was the report that also came through about fighters of ISWAP and Boko Haram who engaged each other, and that particular onslaught also led to quite a number of terrorists dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bukola, some of the papers have captured that particular report, and it's amazing what the threat from Trump is doing right here.
Right.
I mean, thousands of miles away. But some other things have been trending as well, and perhaps we can also get to give that a mention. The fact that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, has declared the former governor of Bayelsa State, former minister of Petroleum Resources, Chief Chimipere Silva. That has also been trending on social media, the fact that the EFCC has declared him wanted. So, I mean, Nigerians have been speaking. You can always trust Nigerians to always engage and speak up and speak out about these kind of issues. So some have been wondering why exactly is he being wanted by the EFCC? Perhaps is there a connection with the attempted coup or alleged coup or attempted coup? While some say, you know what, this perfectly aligns with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu, who has always said, you know what, we're going to be transparent, we're going to be accountable, and all of that. So it's really divided on social media, and somehow wondering why is Islamic cleric Sheikh Gumi not wanted as well. So I've had to go through some of your comments on X Nigerians, and I'm seeing that Nigerians are really, really vocal and critical about this particular declaration by the EFCC. It's over alleged. It's for, I think, over allegations of corruption, and I'm trying to see if I can wrap my head now around just how much these monies are. Perhaps Chief Silva too would indeed present himself before the EFCC, because his whereabouts have been unknown. We understand he's not in the country since that reports surfaced some weeks back about the attempted coup. So, well, the EFCC as well. I mean, Nigerians have always criticized the EFCC, but now we see them declaring Chimipere Silva wanted. And some will wonder, is there perhaps a political undertone, or is this politically motivated? Because, I mean, why not declare some other persons wanted? We just finished the Anambra elections, and only 3 arrests were made, despite reports and reports of vote buying and selling. But only 3 arrests were made, despite the fact that the Nigerian government deployed more than or over about 60,000 security officials. Only 3 arrests were made. And I'm sure those 60,000 officials who were deployed there, I'm sure some humongous amount of money would have been spent on their allowances and all of that, their transport allowances and all of that. So, I mean, EFCC, I think you have to do your job without politics.
Indeed, Kelly, you're right when you asserts that these issues are related, either they be, related to vote buying or the arrest of a former minister and former governor. By the way, let's put it in proper context that the EFCC has declared him wanted over a case of conspiracy and dishonest conversion of $14.859 million. Yes, 859,257, that's the figure. So what exactly is the nature of this conspiracy? What exactly is the nature of, was this dishonest conversion directed at which project or which failed contracts? The EFCC should provide clarity. Recall that prior to this time, the former minister had been quizzed over alleged involvement in coup, reportedly. But his aide had spoken up at that time to say that he had nothing to do with, the coup. But also recall that the military, the defense headquarters, had debunked, claims that there was a coup. An online media had reported, had broken the report of the alleged coup. But the defense headquarters had debunked, that report, saying that the 16 officers that were arrested was in connection with a failed exam. And of course, the reporting medium had quizzed that explanation, saying that it made absolutely no sense that how could, the 16 officers be arrested for failing an exam. And of course, we should rather put it out there that if indeed 16 officers had been arrested and their whereabouts remain unknown till this day, we should be requiring some form of accountability from the armed forces, because these officers also have families. If there's a valid case against them, then they should be brought before a military court and tried appropriately, rather than the hush-hush around this particular case. But we also require that the EFCC come clean about the real reason, or that the former minister had been declared wanted. If indeed he was involved in a coup, then he should be tried in a court of law appropriately, and his charges be made clear in the spirit of transparency. But then again, if financial crimes must be tried holistically, then we're calling out the FCC as well, because of the reports of widespread vote buying that trailed the Anambra election. And we had, a civil society observer on the program yesterday who was quite categorical, about those who were involved in vote buying. So it's not news, it's not hidden, it's an open secret, unless we're not quite clear, we're not serious, when we don't have a vision about what we want for our electoral process. If vote buying can be normalized in such a way that the security agencies look the other way when there is clear evidence. Yesterday I saw a video online of where monies were being distributed to voters. Then if we're okay with our elections to be shaped by vote buying in such a manner that is brazen, then we've not even started yet. Then our elections still do not have the integrity that they should have, particularly in this day and age. But Kelly, I can't take it off my mind that we recorded such a huge success in terms of security yesterday. So should we ask that the international community put more pressure on Nigeria, such that we see these reports every day? We want to see also the arrest of those who are embarking on killing spree in Nigeria's North Central, because the people talk about how these things happen time and again, and there are no arrests. After Yelwata, the Inspector General of Police came forth with news that some arrests had been made. So if these people are debriefed, does it also give us a sense of what is happening on the plateau? And so the information should be, intelligence, should be something that the security agents focus on, and they should work in collaboration as well, such that there will be progress recorded in the fight against banditry and insurgency.
Well, speaking of which, the conversation around these security issues, Pastor Femi Lazarus has also been trending. And that's because he made some very weighty comments. I'm going to see if I can try to read some of them. He has been quoted as saying that there's no religious war and that President Donald Trump wants to invade Nigeria to take its natural resources. That's what has been trending. The Pastor Femi Lazarus have been trending. Hashtag Nigeria's mineral resources has been trending as well. And I saw some parts of that comment where Pastor Lazarus was quoted as saying that check out all of the countries that the U.S. has had to invade or, in quotes, help. Venezuela, perhaps one of the richest countries all around the world. When the U.S. visited, the story changed. Libya. And that's his arguments, really. He also mentioned the fact that somewhere in 2014, when former President Goodluck Jonathan was the 001 of this country, the U.S. stopped Nigeria from purchasing equipment to fight insurgency. And he's wondering, all of a sudden, why care now, many years after? So that's the argument for Pastor Femi Lazarus, really. And this is coming on the backdrop of the fact that, remember that the pastor of RCCG on Friday night also spoke up about, also gave his own views about these claims right here in the country. But I saw a post somewhere too where someone said, you know what, Pastor Femi Lazarus, can you take your church to Plateau State? Can you move your church to Benue State? Can you move your church to Kaduna South? And then let's see just how you would also take this position that you have taken. So that's, I mean, let's leave it here for now. But the fact is that, whether we like it or not, I think we have been very, very vocal about these issues. And then, of course, we have been divided, I think, in many ways since these issues broke out, in the sense that, you know, there are different divergent views and all of that. Some are for and some are against. Should Trump, you know, indeed invade? Should Trump not invade? But I think that for those who have been victims of these attacks, they will definitely seek help, no matter where that help is coming from. Bukola.
Well, you know, some would say that the 1896, you know, conference, where, you know, the foreign powers, the West just basically divided Africa. You know, the French took theirs, the British took theirs. That table, you know, has only changed in terms of the faces, and that the interest of the West, you know, Western imperialism still continues over much of Africa. And Nigeria is not an exception, particularly because this is a country that is now beginning to raise its head economically, you know, with policies that the world superpower is not quite comfortable with. So the geopolitics aspect of this is not lost on Nigerians, especially thinking Nigerians. But we should ask, you know, those who are frowning on the interest that has been expressed in Nigeria with Nigeria's economic development, recent economic development. We should ask them if Nigeria indeed opened its doors, you know, to the U.S., which is now expressing interest, if you like, in the guise of protecting Christians who are being killed. So why did Nigeria open its doors? And what is it going to do diplomatically now to ensure that this does not result in, you know, our very worst fears, which would be the proposed military intervention? Will the people who have been displaced over the years be resettled in their ancestral homelands? Will there be security infrastructure put in place to ensure their permanent safety, not one-off safety? In fact, there are many Nigerians who are not just in IDP camps, but who have found shelter in border communities outside, you know, in countries that border Nigeria. Those are the issues that we should be speaking to now, how to ensure that, you know, we solve this problem once and for all, not one-off. Thousands of Nigerians have perhaps been killed since 2009. So we should be working back home to ensure that, you know, the foreigner does not come in. And that's the most important point to make at this point in time.
All right. Well, so, I mean, those are some of the issues trending on socials. More trends as well. Boko Haram is trending, ISWAP is trending. Guess what? Well, Ned Woko is also trending. But you know what? Let's not go there. Let's get to you what our highlights look like for today, November what now? November 11? Yes, November 11, Tuesday. That's what to expect on the show, guys. Well, first off, again, we head to Anambra State, where we get some analysis and perspectives on the program as we continue to review the electoral process there. We understand that some candidates indeed are deciding and have taken some sort of, have kicked against these results. We'll get analysis and perspectives on the program this morning.
And so we're just counting down to days when the federal government would begin the implementation of the 15% tariff on imported petrol. The reactions continue to trail that planned policy, with some saying that, look, it is in the right direction. It will ensure the growth of our local refineries, while the very real fear also remains that it will lead to an increase in the pump price of petrol well above 1,000 naira per liter. So what's the real issue? 15% tariff, to be or not to be, will reflect yet again on that proposed policy.
Plus, on the program this morning, we again take a look at Nigeria's education sector, and we are asking the question, just how relevant are our schools' curricula in this day and age? So that's what our outlook looks like today, November 11, Tuesday, right here on the show this morning. I'm not sure what exactly you're having for breakfast. Is it coffee or tea? This part of the world as well. I mean, some get to do akara, pap. I'm not sure what your breakfast is looking like this morning, but whatever it is, and there are those who prefer to swallow on a morning.
Now, Kelly is giving me ideas for breakfast this morning. All right, so whatever it is you're having for breakfast, why don't you have it with the morning brief? Join us as you have breakfast this morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll take a moment. When we return, it'll be time to look at the papers. What are the papers saying? Join us again.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. Let's get to talk our national dailies this morning, and we begin with the Vanguard. We'll just see how we can take some of those papers as we get our guests to join us this morning. NAF strikes, kill terrorists, bandits in Borno, Kwara, Katsina, others, says FCT police. The rider underneath that. Let's see if we can get that for you. It looks really, really tiny. It says FCT police, DSS commends special patrols in places of worship, border areas. 4 nursing mothers abducted in Kanu. Governor Sule orders manhunt after midnight attack in Kena local government area. More riders there. Says no inch of Kebbi under bandits' control. That's from the governor, Governor Idris, and over 100 killed as Boko Haram factions clash with ISWAP in Borno border community with Niger Republic. We see also progressive governors task monarchs to invoke local spiritual powers against insecurity nationwide. I remember a former chief of army staff was quoted as, saying that perhaps we should also get to take the spiritual dimension to tackling insecurity. So this rider reminds me of that. Progressive governors task monarchs to invoke local spiritual powers against insecurity nationwide. So please, all the monarchs, religious leaders and rulers, please please consult whatever gods that you serve. But I mean, on a more serious note now, there are some interesting dimensions and twists to this particular report, because we see that FCT Police, DSS commence special patrols on places of worship as well as border communities. There's also the fact that there was some sort of clash between Boko Haram insurgents and those from ISWAP around the border with Niger Republic, the border community in Borno State with Niger Republic. In fact, let them clash the more. Boko Haram and ISWAP, please fight yourself. What's the other one? Is it Lakurawa? Is that what it's called now? The other group as well. Please, all of you should just be clashing like this. Fight yourselves, you understand? And,
achieve total annihilation of each other, such that Nigeria can have peace.
Absolutely.
These are times that we pray for in the fight against insurgency.
So we expect more of those, that kind of fight between insurgents, so that we can eventually have peace restored to this country. Remember when the North was the envy of this country? Remember when people dreamed of traveling to the north? There was a time in this country when, my father used to tell me how he enjoyed just taking his car and driving by road from Lagos to Maiduguri to Sokoto. In fact, he schooled in Kara Namoda. There was a time when it was a thing of adventure, vacation, to, just take a trip. December is coming now. Take a trip by road. People didn't even really care about air travel. They preferred to go or travel by Nigerian roads. And even those who visited Nigeria as well for tourism also enjoyed traveling by road, because they wanted to just see and have a feel of just how natural, how blessed we are as a people, as a country. But now, traveling by road, it's a big prayer point, really. Because there's serious concerns. There's the safety concern. There's even the issues around potholes and all of that. So security concerns and all of that. So we want to see peace return, indeed. So now, continue those strikes. Now that you know where they are, please strike them, and strike them beyond this, now that we are feeling the heat of President Donald Trump. Let's get to put an end to this insurgency once and for all. Since 2009 until now, how come it has taken us so long to put an end to insurgency in the country as well? But more writers from the Vanguard as well. If you see right there, the EFCC giving an explainer to why we declared Timipre Silva wanted. Just underneath the main rider there, you see why we declared Timipre Silva wanted. That's coming from the EFCC, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They're speaking. There are more riders as well there, but Bukola.
Indeed. My take would be, if indeed, traditional powers have made any significant, change in the society in the past, of course we would see it. And so more often than not, what we hear, is reports of ritual killings. There are powers as well in technology, which, some would argue is a form of, power deployed for the positive. Yeah. So I doubt that that counsel would lead us anywhere. Because it will only cause more problems for Nigeria. We have powers in the manipulation of technology, to help us move forward. And, there's a pact that is already being signed by some ministries to ensure that Nigeria manufactures, weapons here at home, to end the continuous importation of weapons.
Dependence on the international.
Dependence on the international community. There are reports to the effect that we spend a whopping 4 billion naira in the importation of steel and other materials that we require for, the manufacture of weapons. Yeah. And we have iron ore deposits in abundance here. Yeah. So traditional powers should make their power. Traditional rulers, or if you like, the people who are involved in African traditional religion should offer their counsel, to our own technology companies on how to solve Nigeria's problems and not create more problems. Let's go to other papers this morning.
But they can see a lot, because I mean, what if they can just imagine that they can just sell the security agents? You know what? Move to this community. We see them right now. Remember some of those Nigerian movies where you can just, in a pot, there's water, you can just see, oh yeah, the military moved to this place, now we can see them there. That's on a lighter note now.
Well, thank you for that cue. I hope we take it. Let's go to Leadership newspaper this morning. Leadership trails on something entirely different, but just as important, that affects you and I. You see there at the top of the big story, alleged 14.8 million naira fraud. Okay, well, let's go to the big story. Marketers blame supply hiccups as cooking gas prices surge yet again. Now, I can tell you about this, Kelly, because just 2 weeks ago, or just early last week, I bought gas for about 17 or 18,000 naira for 12.5 kilograms of gas. Now,
I can tell you about it too, because I have to buy. Right? I have to buy or pay for it, so I know about it.
Now, when will this supply challenge be over? That's the question. You know, it goes as far back as early August, when there was that standoff between the unionists and, of course, you know, Dangote, who is also in the leading manufacturer of this particular product. And we had explanations about supply hiccups, you know, being responsible for the increase in price, astronomical increase in price, by the way. But one of the marketers or dealers in the supply of gas assured us that once that supply challenge had been dealt with, then the prices would come down. But the prices have not come down in any way. And you know, this is also to call out those who are, you know, in the business of retailing, because what happened was that I didn't fill my 2 cylinders at once because their gas finished, and then by the time I was going to pick it up the following day, they were going to slam me the updated price. You know, so, and imagine this is going on in many other parts of the country. So this is totally unacceptable if people who are taking advantage of the situation to make inordinate gain. But you know, the supply problem is another conversation that we should be mainstreaming yet again to find out what exactly the problem is. Our local refineries not being supplied with the you know, the natural resource required for the onward processing for cooking gas, which is a very important staple here in the country. Not just for, if you like now, not just for, you know, mothers in the southern part of the country, if you like, in the urban areas, but also increasingly for you know, mothers in the rural areas who require this, not just for domestic use, but even for their petty businesses, you know, that help them to survive as daily income earners, and for, you know, the industries as well, who use gas on an industrial scale, huge quantities of gas. We must not get to the point where we begin or continue to import gas, cooking gas, on a huge scale. That's you know, Leadership newspaper this morning. Kelly, you have the next one.
All right, so, well, I understand that our guest has joined us this morning, Mr. Ifeta, joins us live on the program. Thank you indeed. We had some sort of issues with you connecting earlier, but now that we have you, perhaps we can begin with the leadership, which Bukola has only just given a mention a moment ago. Mr. Adeni Ifeta, thank you indeed as always. Let's get your immediate reaction to the Leadership newspaper, please. The story there where marketers are putting the blame supply hiccups as cooking gas prices surge again. Mr. Ifeta, because we are already close to December, when we always see a general hike in prices of goods and services. I wonder how you think Nigerians can cope with this hike.
Yeah, I just hope that they don't make cooking gas a commodity that only the rich can afford. And I think government need to step in, whatever the hiccups, whatever the challenges, whatever things they can do to get it off the way, because just maybe 10 years ago or thereabout, masses, they are so dependent on kerosene until it became unreachable, or the price. We're talking about the price as something that makes a lot of people shy away from it. Then come cooking gas that make life easier, but now the market are blaming supply hiccup on cooking gas. Just like you said, December is coming, and it's going to be in high demand, and I think government should do something to look into it, remove whatever hiccups. If they're going to approve some kind of subsidy, approve some kind of truck to supply, or reduce the cost of getting it from point A to point B, so that it can be affordable and it will not turn to another thing when, just like it's obtainable in the past, where we'll be looking for petrol, what's it called, fuel to run our car for people that want to travel for festive period. But I think they can nip it in the bud while they are still much available now. They should do something about it. It's not now we should be talking about gas price surge again.
And earlier on, I had taken the Vanguard newspaper as well. Perhaps we can switch to that, where we reported that the security NAF strikes kill terrorists, bandits in Borno, Kwara, Katsina, others. NAF strikes kill terrorists, bandits in Borno, Kwara, Katsina, others. Mr. Ifetayo, well, all of a sudden we see a different body language from the security chiefs. Well, they are new, but a different body language across board, from the presidency to the security chiefs. I'm sure there's some sort of Trump effect here. Is that correct?
Yes, very correct. Because sometimes they just do it with I don't care attitude, or the guy at the top has not given us instruction. But when you know that your job is on the line, I think you want to sit up, and it's a good one for us. I told someone, about 3 days ago, that it's like Nigeria, God is answering Nigeria's prayer. I think you mentioned something on that line. Whatever it is they are doing now, they should keep it up, so that we need the result. We want, because even if you want to, the Westerner, the European Union, the African Union, they might want to condemn whatever America is coming to Nigeria to do, but they are not coming to help us. We need to get the job done, unless if they don't want to. And another thing I think Mr. President should also do, that I don't know, because it's not every information we are privy to or it's for public consumption, that your job is on the line. If you cannot deliver, if you cannot do this job in the next 2-3 months, just get out of the way, and giving them the kind of support that we need. Defense is something that you don't want to toy with, because if you cannot secure your border, investor will lose confidence, in your country, and it will also affect foreign direct investment. Whatever it is they are doing now, they should not rest on their oar. They should keep it up and wipe them away. At least let's have even if it's 99.9%, so that we can enjoy peace in Nigeria.
Well, you could say that again, Mr. Adeni, and you would not be wrong, particularly because there are more concerns that even terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping is fueled also by the mining of minerals in some parts of the country, which is also sponsored by certain investors in Nigeria. At this point, would rather not name names of those nationals, but just a direction also to the security agents to look into that bit of the narrative that is reportedly fueling banditry and kidnapping, particularly in Nigeria's northwest. But let's head over to the Guardian newspaper, which is focusing on something equally important this morning. Take a look at this. 33 years later, hope dims for safer pipeline supplies of Jet A1 to airports. And the riders give you a sense of the direction of the reportage. Operations across Nigeria's airports have remained hampered by outdated infrastructure and sub-industry standards. On average, about 20 foreign airlines lift roughly 20,000 liters each for return flights, all trucked in through the city's already congested roads, whereas restoring the pipeline could remove up to 100 trucks daily from Lagos roads, reducing traffic congestion, accidents, and fuel logistics costs. It appears as if, the Guardian newspaper is echoing what seems to be a very huge sentiment on this truth table of the morning brief. Mr. Feta, we talk about this time and again, particularly because of the number of accidents that we record on our roads. I'd like you to speak to this.
Yes, in fact, another thing that we are not looking at is because of this truck, and is the passenger who are traveling. You buy a ticket now, a minimum ticket from Lagos to Abuja at least costs about 180,000, 200,000, and it's because all these overhead costs are borne by the passengers, and not just only the truck, like you said, that if pipelines are being laid correctly, supplying the Jet A1 fuel to the airport directly to remove almost 100 truck from our road who was already congested. Yesterday, coming to the island alone, I spent almost 3 hours, coming to the island from mainland. So those are the things they should look into. And I think that sometimes some of our governments who are saddled with the responsibility, as long as it's not affecting them, because when they are coming with convoy, the police clearing the way and all of that, we are not praying that we are not saying that they should involve in a kind of accident, whether major or minor, but as long as it's not affecting them, they just look away. But these are the critical sector that can snowball to, reducing of time wasted on the road congestion. And of course, it will also create a job as well, but risking everything, putting them on the road. And 33 years later, we still don't have a pipeline that supplies the A1 to the airport. It's very alarming. And I think if the government wants to be serious about its aviation sector, this is one of the critical areas that it should look into and do it once and for all. And Nigeria will never forget.
Well, Mr. Professor, let's switch gears to the New Telegraph here. It leads with this rider: Trump's threat, U.S. may alter West Africa's security landscape. That's coming from an ex-DSS director. Says aid stoppage represents severe diplomatic ties, downgrade Boko Haram, ISWA banditry, existential threats to sovereignty. And then says Trump, okay, well, that's a different story. But perhaps we could just touch on this as briefly as we can. Trump's threat, U.S. may alter West Africa's security landscape. I know that people refer to the U.S. as the world power, and so whoever becomes president of the U.S., carries himself as the president of the world. But I mean, why is the continent so, maybe I should use the word weak, such that it will take a president of another country from another continent to come determine just how our landscape security-wise should be? I mean, my colleague earlier was just mentioned the issues around the stories we hear about the scramble for Africa.
Yes, they say sometimes if you don't put your house in order, it's your neighbor that will be telling you how to rule your own house. I think African, we are more on the line of we are divided ourselves than coming together and solving our problem. Regardless whatever aid we have been enjoying, they said the hands of a giver is always on top. It's the one that will dictate. We've been going to all these foreign power to ask for aid, debt forgiveness, etc., etc. But I think it's high time we should look inward so that 54 nations, one continent coming together, because somebody said to move a cargo from US per ton, I think from US to an African country might take you about $40, but within African continent you spend as high as $120, maybe per ton, the way they measure it. So we are much divided and big in this. We are not collaborating. I attended a conference, a summit in Botswana just a few days ago, and they were saying that African is between, I think, between 12% to 18% regional trade that happen within Africa. That means over 80% we do more business with other continents than within ourselves. So that leaves a lot of crack in the wall that they might want to determine our security architecture or the continent architecture or West Africa architecture. But when we come together, pull our resources together, pull our technology together, our manpower together, we can solve our problem. Use our challenges. You know, when we are looking for foreign forces, or yes, there can be a form of collaboration. But if you don't sit down very well, they will come for your head. So I think AU, they should come together and say, we are having these challenges. What can we do to tackle it once and for all? So because it's happening in your it's happening in your neighbor, you now say, no, it does not concern me. No, let's come together, work together, so that foreign forces or foreign element or the world power will not dictate what goes on within our border.
Maybe a yes or no question. Do you think that we should get help from the US?
No, it's our problem, and I think we can solve it.
All right. Well,
because they have interest. If they come for you, they have interest.
Okay.
Forget about what the Yes, sir.
Thank you indeed, as always. Mr. Adeni Fetayo is a public affairs analyst. Thank you indeed for doing this with us, as always. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
You're watching The Morning Brief. Let's take a breather, everyone. When we come back, we get to head to our very first conversation, and it has to do with a countdown to the 15% petrol import tariff, which takes effect on November 21st. Brace up, Nigerians, because there are perhaps consequences. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. And so we start with politics. Of course, coming on the heels of the just concluded governorship election in Anambra State. And of course, we began by reflecting on the conduct of the polls yesterday on the program. This time around, we're continuing to look yet again at that relatedly, but at the results this time around, the resounding victory of the incumbent and the vote distribution to the other candidates that participated in the election. And joining us to reflect on this is public affairs analyst Mr. Jide Ojo, who joins us virtually this morning. Mr. Ojo, thank you for joining us on the program.
It's my pleasure. Good morning, Bukola. Good morning, Ken.
Yes. Before we begin to look at who got what and why, and why, according to reports, the incumbent won by 70% of the votes this time around, beating all other candidates who had been re-elected in Anambra State prior to this time with such a huge number. Let's look at what seems to be a sticking point that has characterized this election, which is vote buying. And some of the candidates are saying that if indeed the programs of the incumbent resonated that much with the electorate, why was this subscription, heavy subscription, to vote buying? I wonder if this is also unsettling for you, Mr. Ojo.
Thank you, Bukola. On November 17, 2021, I did a review of the November 9 election of 2021. And this same issue of vote buying was widely reported. But I also went back in history to as far as 2010, when I was there live to observe the election. The same issues were reported. So it's not about Soludo. It's about the culture, the political culture of people wanting to be paid for their services of exercising their franchise. So you should not And don't also take the voice of opposition as being the gospel truth, because it was a competitive purchase. I watched live the interviews by the APC candidates who alleges that the APGA candidate was buying votes. But APGA candidate also alleged that his opposition, the opponents were also buying votes for as much as 15,000. And that's when he made that statement that even if they are paying 100,000 naira, he was going to win. So the two frontline candidates were involved. So nobody should come on air to kind of point finger at the other. It's a mutual exercise that they all do, believing that if they don't do it, it will be to their disadvantage. But the paradox of vote buying, for me, is that if truly this vote buying is as widespread as we are making it to be, why then was there no significant improvement in the voter turnout? Is it that those who did not turn out did not want to sell, or they are not interested in the money? Because I know that even the Ondo governorship election, observers reported that a vote was being sold for as much as 20,000. But there was still low voter turnout. I'm not too familiar now, but I don't think the Ondo governorship election recorded up to 30% voter turnout. Neither was it that impressive also in Edo in September 2024. I was there in Edo live and I observed what happens. This issue of vote buying, I think, is just a convenient excuse for people to mourn their losses. As imagine someone like the Labour Party candidate, the ADC candidate, say, "Oh, they could not have won because of vote buying." But it is not true. The issue of winning and losing elections go beyond monetary purchase of votes. It has to do with a lot of other things. Do they have structure? Did they even campaign? In this election, we saw that the only robust campaign that took place was between the APC candidate and the All Progressive Grand Alliance candidate. Those are the two people. In fact, Soludo was head over heels. He was light years ahead of his competitors because it was on air, national network, paid for live transmissions, and people knew he was in that campaign. But imagine the 15 other candidates who are just doing a kind of political evangelism, just with a handful of people who are going to shops and all of that. You are not going to win an election like that. Look at the Labour Party that is in crisis. Look at the PDP that is in crisis. Look at the ADC that is in crisis. Look at even the leader of Labour Party, who could not win. He could not even deliver his polling units. So you know the issue of winning and losing election goes far beyond vote trading or vote buying. If that is the singular variable that wins you election, then there should be almost 90% turnout because people should be interested in that cash. But for the fact that people voted with their feet says much more about an endemic culture of nonchalance, the fact that there has not been significant improvement in the living standard of people, and also other variables like no opportunity for early voting for those who are going to be on election duty, late commencement of vote, limited number of hours of voting, which is just 6 hours compared to other countries that vote for 10 to 12 hours. Also, the issue of lockdown. I've raised all of these issues on several media platforms. Unless you do the needful, unless you do what other countries are doing, you will continue to record low voter turnout. It's not a magic that countries like Egypt, like Ghana, like Kenya, like South Africa records up to 70% voter turnout. Even in India, they have multiple voting techniques. They have diaspora voting, they have prisoners vote. They also have early voting provision. They have out of country voting. They have so many, they have touch screen, They have ballots. You have multiple techniques that can make you to participate. And then you don't have this kind of logistical challenges where there is no electricity, where there is no good roads. Persons with disabilities are complaining that they could not have easy access to roads, particularly those who are on wheelchairs and on crutches. So we need to do a lot more if we want to significantly improve voter turnout. It's not just about doling out money for votes.
Well, Mr. Joe, I mean, someone listening to you would think that you're playing down the concern and, you know, and worry around vote buying, because for many observers, the reports we have gotten, and even for our team who covered these elections, there were serious reports around widespread allegations of vote buying. And I'm just wondering, because someone listening to you would think that this is not a concern for us, but I think it's a major concern, the fact that our electoral process has been commercialized. You've mentioned the incumbent governor who was re-elected. There are those who question the power of incumbency, because he is the man who appoints the residential chair for his states. He has control of. He has the control of, you know, of INEC in his states, for instance. So some would question indeed just how free and how fair this electoral process was. Because if you take, for instance, in the US, where we just had some council elections in the US, we see a Muslim there who won. He had to even beat a governor, Andrew Cuomo, in that elections. So we see that in countries like that, there is a level playing ground. How can we have that kind of level playing ground in Nigeria, where whether you're the incumbent governor or not, you don't have control? Because he could afford a lot of things. He's the incumbent governor. He controls the resources of the state. I mean, I'm not saying that he used them, but it was perhaps obvious that some of these things played out. I think that we have monetized our electoral process and elections so much that it is indeed a very, very serious concern, Mr. Ojo.
I agree with you, my brother. I do agree with you, but we should not be fetish with just issue of vote buying. I've observed the election in US, and even in the last general election in US, you saw the role played by Elon Musk. How many, over $100 million spent in kind of voter mobilization or inducement, so to speak, where he was doling out money for those who are going to vote for Donald Trump. And he did say it early this year when they had the rough fight that, look, without me, you would never have been the president. He was telling Donald Trump, because we know of his heavy investment in that election. And as to whether I'm trying to play down, no, I'm not trying to play down issue of vote buying. But we should also understand that it's not every voter that voted on Saturday that was induced or that got money to cast their ballots. There are a significant number who actually believe in the system and voted. And for your information, about a month ago, or 3 weeks ago, in my column in the Punch newspaper, I did call out Governor Chukwuma Soludo that he has actually crossed the red line and he has breached campaign finance provision. And I articulated those breaches. For one, I wrote that piece against the background that he actually made a commitment that any ward that gave him majority of votes will get 5 million. I think the second will get 3 million, the third will get 2 million. And then every ward that he wins, and there are 326 wards that he was going to give every ward where APGA wins 1 million naira. And I said that is vote buying. And I quoted section 121 of the Electoral Act and then section 127 of the Electoral Act that have criminalized vote buying, including inducement. In fact, that section 121 says it's bribery and conspiracy when you made promise of cash reward for votes. And I also pointed out the fact that it's already overshooting the 1 billion threshold that Section 88 prescribed for governorship candidate, that you are not supposed to spend more than 1 billion naira on your campaign. And I said with the kind of flamboyant and robust campaign that he has launched on this re-election bill, he obviously must have spent well over 1 billion, even on political advertising alone. And the third point was that he was also receiving cash donation from local governments, from individuals and groups, in excess of what the electoral law prescribed, which was 50 million. You saw on live TV him receiving 150 million, 100 million from groups, from local government, from individual. And I said that is also a breach of our campaign finance regulation. So I can't say it better, but I just don't want us to be unduly fetish about, oh, if he didn't buy votes, he will possibly not have won. Let me tell you this for a fact. If Soludo did not give Shishi, assuming without considering that he pays for the votes, if he did not buy, he would still have won. Because the power of incumbency is to his advantage. There is a philosophical underpinning to All Progressive Grand Alliance. Since 2003, All Progressive Grand Alliance have become like a iroko tree in the political firmament of Anambra, where for the spirit of Dim Chukwuemeka Odumegwu, people of Anambra State have held on to his philosophy that this is their home and they will hold it tight. He is the third governor to win election on the platform of All Progressive Grand Alliance. And that counts for something. Even his friendship with President Tinubu also counts for something. Don't forget that in May this year, President Tinubu was there to commission projects where Governor Soludo already made the commitment that he will support the president for 2027. And of course, he said the president is his personal friend for over 20 years. So there are so many variables that work in favor of Chukwuma Soludo, not just because of the purported vote buying, but we must not just hold on to that and say this whole November 8th election is about vote buying. There are other fundamental issues that we need to discuss.
Precisely, Mr. Ojo.
The issue of
Mr. Ojo, pardon me if I may come in here. Pardon me if I may come in here. You have hit the nail on the head when you say that there are other variables, and that's what I want you to also consider. I heard the governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress talking about how they were not allowed to campaign in the markets, how outdoor billboard advertisements for their campaigns, the price was shored up. So it would seem as if there was no level playing field. The contest was skewed against them from the beginning. So if there had been equity ahead of the campaign process, do you think that perhaps the results would have been different from what we saw on Saturday?
Yes, Bukola, the result could have been different, but it could still not have made any other party to win. They may have had better show in terms of number of votes they will have won. But you see, election is a capital-intensive enterprise. People should not make it. All the ADC candidates, Labour Party candidates, PDP candidates, all they are saying is just calling a dog a bad name in order to hang it. It's not Soludo administration alone that affects contestants to pay for billboards. I think in 2021, I think they were asking for 50 million if you want to paste your billboard because and it's the state agency. Even though I condemn that, and many right-thinking people condemn that it's a way of skewing the level, is a way of skewing the playing field in favor of the incumbent who has the state resources and also could get a generous endorsement and generous donations. So the truth is that the other candidates do not have the financial war chest that Soludo has. And that's why I said, let's take the vote buying. Let's take it as a constant variable. Just put it aside and then look at whether without vote buying, whether Soludo could still have won. And I said, yes, he could still have won. Maybe the number of votes that ADC will have could be up to 50,000 rather than the very paltry number. Maybe the APC candidates will have won maybe like 150,000. While the incumbent won over 400,000. But it will still not have given them, because, see, election, particularly governorship election and executive elections, are not very easy to win. Let me tell you this. For you to win a governorship election, just like presidential election, you need to win 25% of votes in 2/3 of the local government, apart from winning the majority of lawful vote cast. And do they have that spread? Do they have the support system? I mean, the opposition. The governor said something on Saturday, which was very amusing. He said, I saw opponents, but I didn't see the opposition, or something like that. I'm just trying to paraphrase. He said, I saw opponents, but I don't see opposition, which means that they are just also run because they don't have the financial war chest that it takes to win a governorship election. Right. We know that there is no one who is a serious candidate, even for senatorial election in Nigeria. There are those who spend up to ₦1 billion to contest for senatorial elections because it starts from nomination form. Where APC sold nomination form for, I think, 50 million. So if you are still struggling financially to feed your family, how could you have thrown your heart in that kind of contest where you have to campaign across 150 days and 150 days across 326 wards across approximately 17,820 polling units across 21 local governments. Some of them have to reach environment. It costs a lot to do a very robust campaign, a very resounding campaign. So if you do not have, if you can't stand it, don't go near the kitchen. Many of them, we know, they didn't even have the structure. The party at the national level is in crisis. Labour Party, in fact, the PDP was a very funny one. Do you know that even when PDP said, come and buy nomination form, only one person showed up to buy nomination form of PDP, which was not so before. PDP used to be a darling and a party of choice in Anambra.
Yes.
In fact, even in previous elections, it's always
Mr. Joe, we have to squeeze in as many questions as we can. Let me ask you this question. If, for instance, the ADC, if that party had received a huge and massive support from those at the center, perhaps, from the likes of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, David Mark, Rotimi Amechi, Ralph Aregbesola, the list is endless. If the candidates, Dr. John Truman Wosu, had received support, and by support I mean mobilization, the ADC, I mean, we see how that party has some very big wigs in that party. If the ADC had received that kind of support in Anambra State, well, the story had been different.
Again, I'm sorry to disappoint you. It shouldn't have been different. And that's why they know where to throw their money. And let me also say this. For me, ADC is still a contraction. ADC and the coalition is still a contraction. Did you know that, at least I have it on good authority, that Atiku Abubakar has not formalized his membership of ADC? His chairman, the chairman of ADC in the local government, is saying that he is giving it till December 2025 to come and formalize his membership. So somebody that has not, since almost 6 months ago that they said they have joined the coalition, he has not formalized his membership of ADC. Peter Obi has not formalized his membership of ADC. And in fact, in the August 16 election, Peter Obi was campaigning for ADC, but he has not formally resigned his membership of Labour Party, neither has he formally joined ADC. So these people are just playing a waiting game, believing that when the 8 political parties that is about to be registered by INEC, including ADA, which was initially touted as the game changer, once that party gets registered, they possibly will move en masse into ADA, and that will save them a lot of headache, because right now, ADC is facing a lot of litigations about the takeover of by David Mark and Aregbesola. So if they are holding back their membership, and that's why Peter Obi is just like an orphan. He's neither in Labour of ADC.
But Mr.
He
Joe,
said vote for this, but he himself is not committed. He's not committing resources to it.
But Mr. Joe, regardless of the fact that Mr. Obi is an orphan politically, there are no commitments either to the ADC or to the LP, which could be debatable. But what about the Obi effect itself in Anambra? Why didn't we see it in the result turned in by the candidate, Mr. George Moghalu, particularly when you look at the result of the presidential election in not just Anambra now, in the southeast? The candidate turned in just about 1% of the entire votes. So what may have happened to the Obi effect there in Anambra?
The Obi effect is, he has lost his magic. Sincerely speaking, and I'm being forthright. I have nothing personal against Peter Obi as a person. Today, if there is a presidential election today in Nigeria or this year, Obi will not score up to 1 million votes. You can take it to the bank. Obi will not score 1 million votes across the country because, you see, the obedient movement and Labour Party are two parallels. The obedient movement made Peter Obi what he is, and they have since become disenchanted. You remember that the reason why he's also hesitant about leaving Labour Party formally to join ADC is weighing his chances. If I join ADC and there is no guarantee that I will get the presidential ticket, do I want to be a running mate to Atiku Abubakar again like they did in 2019? And the obedient movement have told him, if you are not going to be the #1, we will not follow you. We will not vote for you. You have to be the presidential candidate, not a running mate. So that's why he's been very cagey and hesitant about formally going to join ADC because of, there was a time there was a kite flown in the media where they said Atiku Abubakar said he was going to join a younger aspirant for 2027, and he came out and debunked it and said, no, I'm not stepping down for anybody. I'm going to go into this contest. And of course, Peter Obi knows that if he goes into contest with Atiku Abubakar, I'm not sure he stands a chance of winning the ticket. And if he doesn't win the ticket, will he want to play a second fiddle behind an Atiku Abubakar or any other person that contests? And that's why he has also been touting, he said, oh, I will do one term, believing that if he does one, if he says that, it will make his supporters to want to follow him because of this whole call of informal zoning arrangement of North and South. He knows that by 2031, power will move to the North, and he will not stand a chance for another 8 years. So his best chance of contesting election as presidential candidate is in 2027. But 2027 is not sure for Obi. The PDP people are saying, come back, we will give you our ticket. But what is the worth of a PDP ticket with the two parallel groups that are now struggling for the control of PDP? That's why even former President Goodluck Jonathan has not heeded their advice to come back into the party. Come back to which party? Today we have two parallel Board of Trustees, two parallel National Working Committee in PDP. Nobody knows how that will be resolved. There are conventions scheduled for this weekend. No one is sure whether it will hold or it will not hold.
Okay.
So he's not sure of getting the tickets in PDP. He's not sure of getting the tickets in Labour Party. He's not sure of getting the tickets in ADC. And that's why they are waiting on these 8 new political parties that is about to be registered, whether they can move to that and build it together, and in which case they will have less of litigation and rancor for their presidential ambition. Okay,
Mr. Ojo, let me get this one in as well. In addition, the YPP candidates put up a fair showing by the standards of that election, coming third, beating even the Labour Party. Were you surprised by that, and what reasons would you adduce to that performance?
No, this is it. Prior to the death of the Senator Ifeanyi Ubah, he has won senatorial election in Anambra on the platform of Labour, on the platform of YPP. Unfortunately, after the first year, I think sometimes last year or late in 2023, he decided to defect to APC. I mean, Senator Ifeanyi Oba of blessed memory. And so YPP seems to have a very strong hold. At least for you to have produced consistently on 2 occasions a senatorial candidate. And YPP is not having the kind of challenge the other parties have at the national level. I mean, you can't compare. I've not heard of any crisis, leadership crisis in YPP. So we're riding on the crest of the popularity of that Ifeanyi Uba has brought to YPP in Anambra. I'm not too surprised that the YPP candidates did well. But the issue is about almost does not kill a bird. No matter how well they did, this contest is in politics we say there are contenders and there are pretenders. Obviously, the contenders in this November 8, 2025 governorship election in Anambra were just 2, and that's the APC and PDP. They were the contenders. Others are just pretenders. They could have scored maybe, if they have the money, the resources, maybe they could have done a little better. Maybe those who scored 378 could have scored maybe 100, 200. But the point is, what gave Soludo the leverage, the edge, was that philosophical underpinning that Akuko is the symbol of APG. That is the party of Chukwuemeka Ojukwu. You know the role of Ojukwu in the political history of Nigeria, how revered he is. And it was the Ikemba Inewi. And the Anambra people have come to philosophically attach themselves emotionally to that party. That this is our own party, we will hold on to it, is the one we know, is the one we want, and is serving our interest as
Mr. Joe, yes, I totally agree with you. Some would argue that for how long will Anambra continue to remain Abga? Only time will tell. You have also called out the obedience movement. I hope they don't come for you. Prepare, brace up, Mr. Joe. But maybe in 60 seconds or less, we have 2 governorship off-cycle elections in 2026. What do you see, or what do you project will happen?
Well, before Osun and Ekiti, we have in FCT where I'm speaking with you, the area council election in February 2026. Yes,
the governorship election is what I'm referring to.
Yes, I know. I'm just saying that there are 3 critical elections ahead of 2027. And I think Professor Amukito has come up to a good start. It can only get better. They need to improve on the template. What I see as a major blight with this election was not just voter apathy or vote trading, but the fact that INEC has yet to perfect their logistical issue. Because according to the Observer report, they said elections started at 8:30 in only 49% of the polling unit. So it means that there was late commencement in 51%. So I want INEC to improve on their logistical challenge, whatever is holding them down. And if they need to actually review the time they want the election to commence, maybe from before it used to be 8 to 2 p.m. Now they say it's 8:30 to 2 p.m. 2:30. Maybe they will say 9:30 or 9 o'clock to 3 p.m. So that this whole logistical challenge of people waiting for INEC official for hours on end is taken out of the equation. But significantly, I hope we will, by then, before the Osun and Ekiti governorship election, we will have had a new electoral act or a new constitution that will enable early voting provision, that will enable prisoners to vote, that will enable out-of-country voting, that will also say something about restriction of movement. I don't think we need it. I've observed the election across the globe. And in many countries, you don't have to lock down the entire country because an election is holding. More so with the heavy deployment of policemen, if you do your mapping very well, hotspot mapping, you don't need to lock down and force people to stay indoors.
And that would be, one of the things that we should continue to look at as far as our electoral process is concerned, ending the militarization. And it's a fine place to anchor this conversation. We must thank you very much, Mr. Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst who has joined us on this particular one. And the way you're calling Akukwo and Ikemba and you're dressing, you could pass for in the Anambra. Thank you so much, Mr. Ojo.
Victory for Apuga. I don't know why they call it Apuga, but
Indeed, thank you so much, Mr. Oh dear. Yeah. Would have loved to hear your last comments, but
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Ojo, for coming through. And from here, we switch gears immediately to look at an equally important issue: 15% tariff on petrol imports, which looks like it's sure to come. I guess is already on standby, and Kelly has this one.
Absolutely. So let's cross over live now to the nation's capital, Abuja studios there, where energy experts and consultant Mr. Bode Showumi joins us live on the program. Mr. Showumi, thank you indeed for agreeing to talk to us here on the program. I'm not sure where exactly you stand. Are you for this or you're against this 15% import tariff? Because, yes, we understand it will increase our production or reduce our imports level to about 80%. But the fear is that this is going to further put a burden on Nigeria as inflationary prices would definitely skyrocket. We hear that perhaps pump price may be increased by maybe 100 or 150 naira.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, irrespective of whatever divide that you are, except you're a direct beneficiary, you first want to wear the cap of the man on the street. In simple terms, the tariff necessitates that the people who are going to bear it are the final consumers, which is basically you and I in some sense. So to that extent, yeah, there may be some concerns and all that, but that's where the big but is. What is the purpose or what is the thinking, the ethos behind the increase? If we get it correctly, based on the memo that was submitted by the taxman to the president, the whole idea was some kind of protective cover for the local manufacturing. There is a lot of argument on that, depending on which side of the divide you are, whether you are free market versus protectionism, whether you are for grow Nigeria at the expense of import and all that. Those are a different set of arguments. But the core purpose of it is that it is believed that this tariff is going to help local refining. So in simple terms, we are expecting that the local refiners are going to maintain their own cost, while those who are importing are going to have to they're going to determine other costs. What it should not lead to is the elimination of options, in which case that will be a monopolistic market and with all the attendant effects of monopoly.
But Mr. Showumi, let's be clear on where you particularly stand, because your explanation doesn't quite get us to the direction where you are. Would it be protectionist or free market as far as this policy is concerned?
Okay, so first of all, I'm a consultant, so my job is to analyze the issues and then people will make up their minds. So if I'm relating to a CEO, advising somebody in government, my job basically is to say, these are the core issues, and then you can decide really where you stand on it. So it's my own personal opinion really is not critical. What is important is to break down the issues in a way that the viewer and the man on the street can look at it and everybody can make up their minds. So if I'm going to explain it again or put it in a different way, at the core of this is the necessity or the desire to protect those that are refining. And that has meant that the man on the street is going to put some amount of sacrifice to ensure that the Nigerian refiners get more stability and get more protection for their business. In simple terms, we're expecting them to retain their own price, even as the prices of those that are importing are skyrocketing. So that will also look at how much local production is really available from the local refining versus the one that is being imported. So those are some of the things that this will lead to.
All right. So, well, some Nigerians are wondering why it does appear that imported fuel are more expensive, are cheaper than those refined domestically, especially some, would say Dangote, for instance, is operating in a free trade zone area. So why does it appear that fuels imported is perhaps cheaper than those refined domestically?
I think that's a business issue. So at the root of that will be cost of operations. I don't know so much about the operational cost within the refinery, that's within the Dangote refinery and all that. But basically, refining is a global business. So there's a range for which the cost of refining will be. There may be some other issues, other factors that they'll look at. Maybe because they're a new refinery, they need to pay up debt, they need to pay up loans and all that. Maybe those are factors. But those are reasons only those operating the refinery can actually speak to. We can only speculate, we can only analyze based on the information that is available in the public domain. But to be honest, if the cost is higher locally, it is an operational issue. It has nothing to do with external factors.
Yeah.
But the point is that the PIA, as it stands, still makes room for importation. And as at the last check, even in the last 1 year, reports are to the effect that Nigeria is still importing petrol to the tune of 613 million liters in 1 year. So the concern is that it looks as if it's going to get worse before it gets better. What are your projections and your concerns in that regard about the pump price of petrol? And if that is the case, clearly, has the policy been well thought out?
Okay, so first of all, importation is a global business. The U.S. refines, as in they produce 13 times the amount that we produce in terms of crude oil. Yet they still import. I think about 2 or 3 months ago, it was a public record that the Dangote refinery itself exported finished products to the U.S. One of the reasons why there must be a room for importation is because of free market and to allow for those who are local to come up with innovative and competitive ways. So in simple terms, at the moment, cost of production locally may be higher for the Dangote refinery, but it is incumbent upon them to look for cheaper ways to come up with innovative mechanisms to ensure that their production cost goes down. Protectionism alone is not going to save them. And that is basically the whole concept about free market, and that is why everywhere in the world there is some liberty in that sense. In terms of things getting better, things getting worse before they get better, that is a fact that all of us have to deal with when it comes to reforms. Everywhere in the world where there's been reforms, significant reforms that turn around people, it had been like that, whether it was China in the 70s, whether it was Britain in the 70s, China in the 80s, Brazil in the 80s, they went through very significant, painful issues. But it is not so much as the current feeling at the moment or the current pain at the moment, but the end game. In other words, what are we expecting this to lead to? Because if the local industries are protected and the local industries are not pulling up their socks, they're not being innovative, they're not reducing their costs, they're not trying to be competitive, we're just going to end up with a subsidy that would exist until there's another crisis and another set of reforms.
But can the local industries be innovative on their own, reduce costs on their own? They're working amid the current realities in the market. They're buying crude at the price that the federal government offers, and amid all of the power issues that we have. So the issues you're referring to, they're not in the control of the local refiners.
So that's the entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm speaking because I also run a business. There's a difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur, and this is all over the world. So when you even check the history of the oil and gas business, the oil and gas business, which was basically enshrined into the structure we know it by the Shell Corporation as well as the Rockefeller, which became ExxonMobil and Co., they didn't develop the industry based on government support. On the contrary, they developed the industry contrary to market forces and contrary to support. And you can say that for anybody. Even the Dangote group itself, they developed their business in sugar, in cement, not necessarily because of everybody liked them, but because they were pursuing goals. So there are entrepreneurship goals. And those entrepreneurship goals are things that exist within the forces of demand and supply. So it is within those difficult circumstances that you eke out an agenda, that you eke out innovation, that you actually stabilize. So what I'm saying is not guesswork. It is just basically that it is a responsibility of a business to innovate, to survive, so that it can flourish. Because when it does not innovate, when it does not survive, when its prosperity is based on external factors, then it is not sustainable. For it to be sustainable, the circle of profitability must come from within itself. And that historically is the nature of business. So yes, I agree that there should be the protectionism for the local industry. But the protectionism is not the end goal. The protectionism is there so that the local industry can innovate and become competitive. So when it innovates and it becomes competitive, then it can now start to compete globally.
And of course, we have these modular refineries in Edo, Rivers, and Imo states. Well, clearly, from your body language, I'm not sure you're very optimistic that this will work because we've been down this road before, Mr. Shewumi. This policy takes effect in 10 days, November 21. And it's coming at a time where the phrase subsidy is gone 2 years after has put Nigerians in a lot of hardship. I hope you can hear me. It has put Nigerians in a lot of hardship. So in terms of the timing of this policy, do you think that the government has gotten it rightly to take this to Nigerians at this time?
Okay, so there are competing forces or competing interest groups at the moment. So if you ask the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, is welcome. If you ask the refiners, particularly the Dangote group, some people are probably dancing. But for everything, there's a push and a pull. In terms of the economic issues of the policy itself, we have to leave that to the economics, who are probably better experts in defining how to interact with the macroeconomic issues. But the issue in terms of the profitability, the survival, and the stability of the local industry as enshrined by or as exemplified by the Dangote refinery is such that it is a temporary relief, which is very much like the crude for Naira. It is a temporary relief. But there is a responsibility on the people who are beneficiaries of the relief that for the period that this relief is available to them, they owe it to Nigerians who are actually paying for the relief to innovate, to come up with additional ways for them to be competitive without needing external help. That is a big responsibility. And this is not core energy per se. This falls within geopolitics, it falls within the business decisions. It's not pure engineering to that sense. So they must come up with ways to ensure that they compete, and it's not that after about 9 months or another 1 year, we want to increase the rate from 15% to 20% to protect local refineries again.
Well, it's a tall order there. It's a tough task that you hand to the, local refineries, and the test of the policy would only show how they survive if there are no other alternative measures from the ministry and the relevant agencies to ensure that they are protected in terms of pricing. And that takes me to my next question. You mentioned earlier, that perhaps Dangote would be rejoicing being a local refiner, a domestic refiner. But the refinery itself is set to be in a free trade zone, which means that according to, industry watchers and the policies in place, the products from there are imported. So will the 15% petrol import tariff apply to Dangote as well? And if it does not, should the petrol importers be rightly raising eyebrows and asking questions of the NMDPRA and the federal government why the policy is not applying to Dangote refinery?
So, to be honest, in terms of the effective implementation of what is happening within the free trade zone, Dangote refinery has been enjoying the best of two worlds, and that has been exemplified in a number of issues. But it is incumbent upon those who are saddled with the responsibility for managing the free trade zone and for enforcing laws, which in this case is the tax laws and all that, to do their job, to do their work. In terms of regulation, what the regulator's responsibility is in terms of the policy is not so much as an implementation of the 15%, that's the NMDPRA. That is more within the ambit of the FIRS and those who are responsible for collecting tariffs at the border. So there are a whole range of government agencies who need to work in tandem to ensure that this thing is actually effected. As to whether the Dangote refinery itself will be saddled, will have to take responsibility of that 15%, I don't fully know, because I don't fully know the details of the conditions that are available at the free trade zone. So it has to be somebody who knows a bit more in terms of whether there are concessions for new, for pioneer industries and all those kind of things to come. But from the fact that, from the information on the grapevine that they actually lobbied or influenced that, I want to believe that it's not affecting them. So that should be on the positive side for them.
Well, it's a fair question to ask, but whether they lobbied it or not, if the policy had been well thought out and if it will, apply to all. The most important thing is that we are now a domestic refining nation. And the question that Nigerians continue to ask is, where are the benefits in terms of pricing of petroleum products? Speaking of which, how much do you project that Nigerians will be buying petrol for upon implementation of this policy, well, according to reports, by November the 21st?
Okay, well, I wouldn't know the exact costs that it will take, because some of the costings are business decisions. In fact, at the moment, there are indications that some of the pricing are not exactly profitable for some of the operators. So there are people that are running at a loss at the moment. However, having said that, if there is a 15% tariff increase, it means that at the minimum, there must be a 15% markup on the cost. If there's a 15% markup on the cost, because of the nature of petrol, it means the whole transportation sector will have some kind of increase, which means that the cost, the logistics cost of delivering the product to the last mile is also going to increase. So it's not a simple interest or a simple issue of it just being on the costs of importation is going to be a compound issue because it affects all the supply chain issues. So at the end, maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe 30% increase. Those are decisions for those who are importing it to decide upon. But we will say at the minimum, maybe 15 to 18% increase at the minimum.
And that would be 1,200 naira, 1,100 naira per litre.
For Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, for those in the interland, it should be more than that.
Wow. Mr. Showmi, so I was just trying to do the maths a bit. So if via that 15%, it does means the government will generate about maybe 1 trillion naira over a span of 12 months. So I wonder perhaps how you think levies generated from that tariff can be used, especially considering complementary social relief measures. How would you advise the government to channel that money, 1 trillion naira, over a space of 12 months?
Okay, for me, I'm speaking purely based on the progress of the industry. Maybe there should be some center on innovation within the downstream sector. Somebody to actually look at, maybe in combination with the universities, to look at ways for which our refining efforts can be cheaper, for which technology and solutions can be. Some kind of innovative center will be very useful to be funded by that. In terms of the direct relief to people, there has always been a lot of efforts at that. The primary challenge with that is the corruption and the delivery of it. As recent, there is a lot of relief efforts and strategies targeted for the CNG. I'm not so sure an appreciable amount of people within the populace can attest to that, even though people do attest to that. So usually when it comes to relief of those kinds to each individual, it has not been known to work. So there has to be some kind of way in which the funding has to go into something that is policy driven, such that the businesses themselves will have to reduce costs. You see, the solution to it, the long-term solution, is cost reduction. The reason why the Dangote refinery is patriotic is the fact that the Nigerian identifies the refinery and its efforts with cost reduction. And until they start to feel that cost reduction across board, that benefit will not be seen. So efforts needs to look at ways to help these people improve their operations. They need to look at policies that will help them to improve their work. But the responsibility of improvement and all that, the energy to actually make progress, lies on the companies, the refineries themselves. So policies can only do so much.
All right.
Because a policy, for example, is like the white lines on the road. You can have the best tarred road, you can have the best white line, but if you have a drunken driver, there will still be accidents. Yeah. So policies have its limitations, and we must know that.
Well, one thing is certain, this policy will indeed mark a significant shift in Nigeria's energy sector and Nigeria's economic plan as well. But we must leave it here, and thank you indeed for analysis on the program. Mr. Bode Showumi is an energy expert as well as a consultant. Thank you indeed for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
All right, let's take a moment, everyone. When we come back, we're going to switch gears as we get into our final leg of our conversation here on The Morning Brief. And guess what? Nigeria's education sector gets our attention next. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. So let's talk about education and Nigeria's policy and how, education is faring under this administration. And joining us on this particular segment is Mr. Gafar Umar, is the communications lead at NigerSolve, a development company. He joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Gafar, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Okay, so let's start with infrastructure in the education sector, particularly as it has to do with, the current administration. What are your observations based on the development work that you do in terms of, improvement, in more investment in, construction, renovations of classrooms? What are your observations?
Okay, thank you. I realized that in a lot of schools, especially government-owned schools and primary schools, there are not a lot of attention that are being given to them. And you realize, for example, in Lagos, I got to a school some times ago in the part of Imota, and then the school was really looking so bad, dilapidated, children, primary school children, very young children in school sitting on the floor and just languishing around, items, board. They're still using black this charcoal board in 2025, and it's just so ridiculous that the state of the infrastructures in our schools are still like that today. And we need to be I think it's very important to note that primary education is compulsory for all children. Right, it's compulsory, and according to the UNICEF Out of School Children report of 2022, it says over 10.2 million Nigerians are out of school. Children are out of school, and that's for the primary school, and for the junior secondary school about 8.2 million. And why is this? Why is this so? There's a project in Bayelsa State, where a young girl is working on rehabilitation of the school that she was posted to. Majority of the students in that school are not, coming around again, and that was why she picked interest in it. And because there are no spaces to sit, there are no chairs, furniture, and all of that. So people sit on the floor. Because of that, they felt like they were not getting enough attention, and they would just go to do something else. And this happens so much in our rural areas. Out of school children happen so much in rural areas where nobody is being given attention to them. And because of this, people that you're trying to motivate to beg to go to school, and you're not providing the necessary supports in terms of infrastructure, they would eventually just lose out and just feel like they can do something else, maybe go do their farming, or maybe go do just something else aside from education. And we know the ripple effect of this. If we continue to not pay attention, if the government continues not to pay attention to the children and out of school children, the ripple effect is going to be unsafe area. We're going to have students, we're going to have people languishing around, causing unrest in the community. When you have schools that is not unsafe, is not properly fenced, you're going to have bandits coming in, kidnapping children, and the ripple effect goes on and on and on. And I just believe it's very important that as a society, as a people, we begin to pay more attention to these things, and maybe even leaving the government to what the government is doing, and start looking for solutions ourselves, and that's typically what we what we do at our organization.
Yeah, Mr. Gafar, so maybe on a lighter note, first of all, you mentioned the fact that in 2025, 21st century, we are still using the blackboard,
yes,
and chalk. And we find ourselves in this part of the world where we believe that, look, you have to go through some of those very rigorous training and environments because it makes you who you are, it makes you, a Nigerian. And when you get out there to the world, you always show them that, of what stuff you're made of. But when you also look at the environment here, does that also affect the quality of our education? Because I'm asking that because the average Nigerian who leaves the shores of this country abroad, the average Nigerian always performs excellently well. That's what we see. That somebody is struggling here, he jackpass, he leaves the shores of this country, and then he's performing excellently well.
So you ask yourself, what's really driving that? Yes, our education sector is, maybe we are getting I wouldn't say we are even getting, enough as far as education is concerned. For example, a typical science student, even if you are very good with the theoretical aspects, theoretical aspect of what you are doing, you are nowhere as far as practical is concerned. And we've seen this, seen this testimonial over and over where people say, they went for their masters or their PhD and they're struggling with basic equipment because back home they don't have all of these things, but they know it, they can draw it, they can visualize it, but they've never had to undo some of these things, and it takes them a lot of time to be able to catch up. And then when we say they are doing very well, what is driving them? A lot of people have been driven by by the community that they come from, the poverty that they are in the background that they have, and even because they don't want to go back to the situation that they were before, so they just put in that extra effort. As an average Nigerian puts in a lot of effort into whatever he or she is doing, because they know where they're coming from and they want to have a better life. And I think that's what's driving us. It's not necessarily our educational sector that is so great that we are now doing so well. A typical university undergraduate, I was just talking to my friend, I'm like, if you go to a university in Nigeria and your lecturer gives you the course curriculum, you can actually just write all the exams and pass. Because the honest truth is that how many times are lecturers coming into class? What is the capacity of the class? There, in my 100 level, we have a hall that takes over 1,000 people. And trust me, aside from the first two rows, how else are students listening? There's no megaphone. There's no convenient PA system to have these classes. And you just find out that students just taking this course curriculum, go on their own, make their research, study for these exams, and then they come to write the exam. So if you go to a university today, they give you the course curriculum, even without a lecturer coming into your class, you're going to literally pass the exams because you are doing it anyways on your own. So, I mean, yeah. All right.
I'm just wondering if it is that self-improvement that you talk about that makes, Niger products do exceptionally well when they go abroad.
Yeah,
or there's something also that remains good about our education system. Speaking of which, the new curriculum that is being developed by the administration is talking about, the adoption of computer-based tests, and there are concerns over that. Art students no longer require, mathematics as a compulsory subject, but doesn't mean that they won't take it. Yes, we've had that clarification from the Ministry of Education. I wonder how this prepares Nigerian students for the modern world. How do you see these policies?
The intentions are good, but we would ask ourselves, what are the preparations? I heard the WAEC could start writing CBT, start writing WAEC CBT, and it's so unfortunate. While I was writing my JAMB, I got into the hall, and the lady beside me, she was jilting. I mean, she cannot even press the mouse. She couldn't use the mouse. Some of us have that opportunity while growing up. Maybe our parents have enrolled us into a computer school, by the house, or maybe you have the opportunity to attend a school that, you use computer system and all of that. But if you look at an average, government school, government-owned school, you realize that majority of them, even if they have, a computer lab or a computer system, they don't use it. I can tell you for free, you can do a tour around some schools in Lagos, government school in Lagos. You realize that the computer labs are usually locked. They're under lock and key. The system with the nylon that came with, when and some of these things are being donated by organizations. They are being donated by maybe even the schools. But the very day they finish the launching, they lock it up. And then wait for the next day, and there's going to be a ceremony or an event before they open it up. So it's unfortunate that we want to. The intention is good, yes, because we need to compete with the global market.
However, how would that work in rural areas where internet is still a problem?
That's it. I heard they're going to do the model they use for JAMB, where they move students from one school to another. Meaning now parents have to struggle with transporting their children from their community schools to maybe neighboring communities where they have these computer systems where they can write their WAEC and transportation. And the most importantly is these children are not confident enough in front of the computer system. One, even if they understand what they are going to write, they know the mathematics, the algebra, and everything. they are not able to even use the system to input whatever they have learned or they've studied. So I'm scared. I don't know what the WAEC result is going to be after the first CBT exam.
So you run an organization that provides solutions in a number of sectors.
Yeah.
So from the solution approach, what recommendations are you offering to some of these challenges in the education sector?
Yeah, I mean, we look at it as we say in our organizations. It is well will not solve Nigerian problem, because most times when we talk about Nigerian problem, everyone's like, oh, it is well, oh. So it won't solve Nigeria's problem, and that's why as individuals, as organizations, we brought ourselves together, just a group of young people, thinking that we need to find a solution to this problem. But particularly in the education sector, we are supporting schools in rural areas. The example I gave earlier is one of our CSM. We call them Community Solutions Manager in Bayelsa State. She's rehabilitating a school in Bayelsa, ensuring that we're providing schools with furnitures, good writing materials, boards, rehabilitating the environment to ensure that the school is conducive, because that's the number one thing. If the environment you want to learn, if this place is not nice, you won't even be on this show, having a great show this morning. Right. So, we have an amazing environment where students can learn and then able to get the adequate knowledge to succeed eventually. So that's what we are doing, and then we're inviting a lot of people to
in 10 seconds or less. When you look at the federal government, leave the Lagos State government, you've hit them enough. But at the federal level, on a scale of 1 to 10, how intentional do you think the federal government is about the quality of Nigeria's education on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, I think maybe 5. They are bringing up a lot of policies, but I'm not seeing a lot of work, hard work go into that. So policies, yes, but hard work needs to go into it as well.
All right. Thank you for the insights that you have brought to this conversation.
Yeah.
An important one at that. Mr. Gafar Umar is the the communications lead at NigerSolve. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
All right. So many, what would you call it now, nuggets that we've taken from the show today. Almost does not kill a bird, and it is will not solve Nigeria's problem. Thank you for being a part of the show today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Sunrise Daily is up next, by the way. I am Bukola Koka.
From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Egiga. Have a productive Tuesday. Bye now.